This is Joe Peters with MomFit with Joe Peters. Welcome to the Spanglish Network and the Hair Network on the channels on Single TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Single TV app in the respective app stores for iOS and Android device. While you are downloaded, make sure to give us a rate and a comment. The app is free. Single TV is also available in Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV, Roku, and Roku Stick in all the smart TVs. And while you are doing that, make sure that you are follow me, like it says in the screen, at Joe Unicorn Coach on Facebook, on Instagram, and make sure that you are subscribing to all the channels so you can stay with us. I handle my social media personally. So if you are facing a challenge, a difficulty, a question, a hard time in your journey in motherhood, please send me a message. If I don't know the answer, I will find an expert like Nisanka to come and join us so we can help you and support you together, because the mission of MomFit is helping you to win the marathon of motherhood without burnout. I am super excited. I was in the green room telling Nisanka how excited I'm to having her here today, and the flexibility that she did into changing some things in the backstage, because I've been waiting for this interview for months. It is very close to my heart, and I know that is going to be one of those that is going to touch the hearts and the souls of so many parents in the world, so many moms in the world that are facing this. And it's a topic that we don't talk about, and that is how to parent with a narcissist to preserve sanity, take your life back, and support your children. And this Nisanka is a trauma aware life coach, a holistic practitioner, a mother, a poet, a writer, and a narcissistic abuse survivor. She helps parents who parent with a narcissist partner or with an ex partner to preserve their sanity, take life back, and find the best way to support their children emotionally and mentally. Nisanska's experience of growing up in highly narcissistic environments and later being in a narcissistic relationship led her to reflect on her own life at a point when she was severely depressed and suffering from CPTSD. Since then, she has been healing from her inner child wounds and narcissistic abuse to build a thriving life for her and her daughter. Nisanska was in teaching before she changed her career to become a coach. She lives in the UK in a small town close to Brinton. So if you're in the UK, you have her closer than I do. She enjoys nature walks, cooking, stand-up comedy, and writing poems. Nisanska, is really a pleasure and honor to have you here. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for doing the work that you are doing to help so many moms around the world to be able to see a future after a relationship with a narcissist, after parenting with a narcissist. So the first thing that I want you to share a little bit with us is, I ask all my guests for a phrase. And I love yours, and I want you to share with us why you choose that phrase. The phrase that Nisanska choose is, damn if you do, damn if you don't. So you may do it as well.
Yes, I think thank you very much for having me. And I've been waiting for this opportunity actually. So thank you everybody for watching. And that phrase I think is applicable to co-parenting situation or parenting situation. You cannot really co-parent with the narcissistic partner. You just parallel parent with them. Or it can also be applied to healing situation, like if you don't heal, you know one of the main things that stops people from going through healing is the pain, fear of having to go through the pain and re-traumatizing themselves and having to make all these changes in their lives. And so they sometimes they choose to be in that situation, and there is no shame in it. I'm not shaming those people, because uh, uh, it is a choice that they've made, and very respectfully accept that. And and going through healing is extremely painful sometimes. you know you can make that choice. If I'm stuck in this situation, is life is painful. If I go through healing, life is painful for a short period of time, and then things actually do improve eventually. Healing is very, very uncomfortable, very difficult, very painful. Nevertheless, the rewards are high. So that's why the same thing with parenting situation as well. You're stuck in that situation, there isn't much you can do. And there may be situations where you completely have to get the authorities involved and do something, because it's too dangerous for children, and you've got to do what you need to do in terms of safeguarding children. But there are situations, I think, when I talk about narcissism and narcissistic personality traits, I might be more talking about the people who are in the middle of it, like it's a spectrum. I'm sort of more talking about the people in the middle, because you have many good days, and the bad days are the ones that's leaving you traumatized. So I'm kind of talking to that. So if you're parenting with somebody like that, you know, there aren't many safeguarding concerns that might come to the surface, but nevertheless, the abuse continues. So you might as well do it right. Yeah.
Good, good, good. Now let's gonna talk a little bit about your story. I know that I shared with the bio, but I want you to tell us a little bit about your own journey and how that make you go into helping other women and other moms to do the same. And when I was reading your bio, I was smiling because very similar to you, I grew up with narcissists in my home. Then I had a romantic relationship with a narcissist that almost killed me in my 20s. And then finally I worked for a couple of bosses that were narcissists, and that was the last one just few ago. And it is so painful every time, and you
Yeah.
get so traumatized, and it
Yeah.
takes so long for you to get back to feel like you were not crazy, like it was not
Yeah.
your fault. So let's gonna talk a little bit about your story and your journey into that, figuring out that, and then your healing, and then from that healing, your passion into helping others to do the same.
Yeah, so I'm gonna start the story in about 2017, when I was like really severely depressed, and I was suicidal at the time. And there were two occasions where I, one occasion was I was hugging my child and I was saying goodbye. And so I went and got some antidepressants and tried to get some help, but nothing was changing. I was still in a very similar, in the same situation. And then I one day got in the car and started driving, and there was a roundabout close to our home. If I turned right, I would have ended up in the train station, which is where I was planning to obviously do something in my life. And then if I turn left, and I would end up in the hospital. And for some reason, my daughter's kind of face came to my mind, and I turned left and I walked into the A&E and I said, I really need help. I feel like I'm going to do something today. I need help. And so that's the two moments. And the thing is, with mid-range narcissistic people, where you have a lot of good days, and but there's this, pinching and minimization and denying and gaslighting and insults and manipulation and lies, all these things that is taking place in your life. But it's a bit like a leaking tap. you know if the tap is proper broken, it's gushing out, you can see it, you would be compelled to do something about it. But if you see like a tiny drop occasionally drop into that bucket out of the tap, sometimes we just don't pay attention to it until the house starts flooding, because you've not paid attention to it. So my life was a little bit like that. I wasn't paying attention to it. I wasn't equipped enough. There was obviously a history of childhood trauma, like endless trauma with narcissistic parents as well, highly domestic violence, abuse, domestic violence environment, home. And so yeah, like I grew up with chaos, and I didn't the life I was living felt like a improvement, a good life, you know. So I really wasn't paying attention to it. And because there were two occasions where I was trying to end my life, and I just kind of one day had to like sit down and think about it. I still didn't have the courage to leave the marriage or, end the relationship or anything like that until one day like some other things happen, and that was, I really obviously don't want to talk too much about into it, but that day I was like, you know what, it really really put things into perspective for me. You will notice there's always that one or two incidents in your lives you tolerate and tolerate and tolerate and tolerate. One day that something happens, you're like, this is it. I cannot take this anymore. There's the threshold. So something like that happened, and I just walked out with a couple of bags of clothes in my car and an old TV and my laptop, and that was that. That was that, and I'd been healing ever since. I mean, and I'd left my previous career in teaching, and I'd started, training as a life coach, which I think really, really helps to see certain situation. I was in therapy at the time, which again was very helpful because then I could step back and observe what was going on rather than actually living in the story, being spun around. And so, yeah, when I stepped back and I could see what was going on, and it's been an uphill battle ever since, and it's been really, really difficult. I think that healing from narcissistic abuse is a bit like two steps forward and one step forward and like 10 steps back, and one step forward and then 10 steps back, and it gets easier over time, and then you get to a point where, yeah, that voice is not there anymore, and you've discovered yourself, you've discovered a new you, and life is good. So
Yeah.
yeah, here I am.
And I think that one of the biggest fears and challenges, because when you are in a romantic relationship without children, or when you are in a work environment, you just can completely cut the relationship and that's it. But then there is there's the situation when you have children and you go away and take off the romantic relationship, but the reality is that person is going to be in your life and in your children's life for the rest of their life, because is their parent, is their other part. So um what is one of those advices that you have for um and I think that is apply either if they are staying
Yeah.
together in the same house, or if they actually split, about co-parenting, and can you actually co-parent with a narcissist?
You can't co-parent. You need to understand what co-parenting actually means first. Co-parenting, you need to have mutual respect, mutual understanding, agreeability. You need to be able to agree, come to mutual decisions, communicate effectively, and use nonviolent communication, and actually respect each other's boundaries. All of these things are essential in terms of co-parenting. And if you've ever been with a narcissist, you all know none of that is possible with a narcissistic person, because they're conflict oriented, they love a conflict, and they're very rigid, and they're entitled, and they also play the victim all the time. So which means, and parenting from them is a matter of convenience. They'll do it when it's convenient for them, they'll do it when they want to put on a show, and then they will do it when they can get validation from your children. It's like if your children are doing really well, it's like, yes, I'm the parent, but they're not really doing the work to actually, support children to get to that stage. It's a bit like, so in that case, important to understand that this battle or the idea of co-parenting, that's not going to work. So that's the first thing that I'd invite people to let go, the idea of co-parenting. So the next thing is parallel parenting. So there might still be certain aspects of co-parenting, like you need to have a childcare arrangement. If they're in, two different households, you need to follow the court orders. There are certain elements of a co-parenting that will still be intact. But in terms of values, in terms of supporting your children, in terms of, relationship with your children, anything else. You parallel parent in the sense you provide that sanctuary for your children in your home, for them to come home and to have the ability to grow up into their own authentic selves and know themselves and experience unconditional love. Whereas the other parents' home, they do whatever they want. So you're just going to, unless there are serious safeguarding concerns, right? It is one of those things that we're going to have to radically accept that is what it is it's going to be. And a- and then, and then you create a home environment for your children in your home, whether it's 25%, whether it's 5%, 50%, you have parental responsibility. Make that count. Just have to make it count.
And I love that because that is part of, and we will talk about that in a little bit, but that is part of that healing of us letting go of that need of protecting our children. Because what you're saying is we will never had any option on what happened in the other house, especially if it's a narcissist person. And I love what you said about they are always the victim. I was smiling because I always tell the people that I talk about with this topic is they a narcissist person had, you know, that a narcissist person, one of the first signals of a narcissist person is they only play three roles. They only have three faces. They are either the hero, the victim, or then when those two don't work anymore, they become monsters, and then they go in and try to damage you
Yeah.
and say horrible things. So when you start seeing behaviors, and this is a little bit into some parents that may be like, oh, but I'm not sure if this person is a narcissist or of this other person is a narcissist. I think that one of the easiest way to do it is to start seeing their behavior throughout time, and if they are usually playing in one of those buckets, either a hero or a victim, and
Yeah.
then start going and talking with the people that the relationships didn't went good with, and then seeing the third one as a monster. Then I think that is something that is good that we normalize. Because I think I don't want to hear from you. I think that one of the issues that we have when we have relationships with narcissists is because when we start seeing the truth and we start seeing a part of it, one of the challenges and one of the heavy things is everybody else sees them as the hero or the victim. So then is that pressure of nobody's going to believe me.
Yeah.
They normally had a lot of authority
Yeah.
and an image in their circles. So is that part of just instead of feeling the fear of nobody's going to believe me because I am living the monster phase, but the rest of the world is still on the pink glasses hero victim dynamic. When we accept that and we say, yeah, that's the truth, the only three ways that that person can interact is they need to be recognized as the hero, the victim, or like they are doing with me right now, they become the monster when they know that we are out of their control.
Yes, so yeah, I really like that. Like we always refer to that drama triangle, and drama triangle is something that we often, even without us being narcissistic people, we are in it. But narcissistic people, you're absolutely right. They're either coming in with like the knight in shining armor, like trying to rescue you, like and love bomb you and like wine you and dine you at the beginning of the stage, like making you feel like you're the princess. I'm actually referring to females here because this is a channel for mothers. And they make you feel like you're the princess, you're the center of the attention. And through devaluation, they bring you down because narcissistic people are pathologically insecure. They do not know their identity within themselves, which is why they want to bring you down to their level so they can feel important. And and then if you ever challenge them, they either go into that, oh, I can't believe you do this to me, like after all I've done for you, or it's like, is this how you treat me, like after all that I've done for you? So they go between those two. So I think radically accepting takes time. It's not something that you can do over time. I would say, like, educate yourself about the patterns and, like, sort of step back. It's almost like describe your life as if you're describing your friend's life. So you kind of separate yourself and your experience. And that way, if you start writing them down, you'd be able to see, oh, what would I say to my friend if my friend was going through this? How would I, how, what advice do I have for this person? Like, would you allow your friend to be ridiculed all the time, controlled all the time, and their financial freedom to be taken away all the time, or mocked for the way they dress or eat, or for their talents? Would you allow your friends to go through that? I don't think you would, right? So separate yourself from what's happening to you as an individual. And then that way you might be able to get to the stage where you can radically accept. From a place of radical acceptance, you might find yourself in incredible grief. Like rock bottom, usually you hit the rock bottom after radical acceptance. People often think, oh, actually, you know what? Radical acceptance is the part that I need to get to. Yes, it's a very important part of the journey, but usually people tend to hit the rock bottom after real radical acceptance, because then it becomes this thing where, oh my goodness me, have I been living a lie all these years? When I was told I love you, when I was, wined and dined, when we had this child together, was it all a lie? And then grief strikes, and so many, like, complex emotions that you're going through. You start questioning everything, and then it's about taking one thing at a time and unraveling them, and get yourself to a point where you feel regulated, and you don't hear that voice anymore. It is a long journey, so take it slow. Take it slow. Don't rush it. uh and have some self compassion and empathy for yourself, because it's not like you chose to be in this situation. It's not like you went into this situation knowing. There isn't anything you could have done differently to know this situation, because you've been lied to. You trusted somebody, and that somebody lied to you, and there's the difference. So know the difference. So it's not like, don't ask that question. Not don't ask. People often ask, "Oh, I wish I knew." You wouldn't have known. You wouldn't have known. It's like, why did I do this to myself? You didn't do this to yourself. Somebody else did it to you. So really, really know the patterns, and then, yeah, and then you can take it from there.
And I think that is very important what you are saying into speaking up and sharing and going from that fear of, because I think that one of the biggest things with narcissists is that we start doubting our own sanity, because we are
Yes.
not narcissists. So we are like, am I taking this too far? Am I exaggerating? Am
Yeah.
I imagining this? And then one of the things that is important to know is they are expert, professional um, liars and manipulators.
Yeah.
So when you are in their circle, they are all the time bringing you in until that's why they become the monster. When they start knowing that you cannot be controlled, that you cannot be influenced, that you are starting to see the reality in them, then that is too much for them, because then
Yeah.
that they feel really threat, and they feel
Yeah.
really afraid that other people are going to see the same that you are seeing, and then they become this vendetta into hurt you, into destroy you, into taking things from you. So I know that I want to talk about this. When you are in that phase, when you are in that phase where the victim and the hero are gone, and you are saying you are really a monster, and
Yeah.
they start attacking and trying to hurt you, what is one of the best strategies against a narcissist for us, for the moms to work on, and to be able to offset those that push of energy that the narcissist will start taking on?
Okay. Um, so narcissistic abuse is domestic violence. That's really, really important to understand. Like people who are living with mid-range narcissistic people might not realize this. Narcissistic abuse is domestic violence, because domestic violence talks about emotional control, financial control, um, di- um, um, digital abuse as well. So you're talking about all of that. Narcissistic people will engage in the vindictive stage where they want to take revenge, and they like turn up a notch their cruelty, they turn it up a little bit, especially when they're challenged, when their um, abandonment wounds are triggered because you're challenging them or you're threatening them that you would leave them. So they will take you through. They will take you through love bombing again. They will take you through the abuse cycle. They will take you through that sort of abuse cycle again. So understand. So pay attention. The first thing is to pay attention, and equally equally important is your safety and your children's safety, right? Because narcissistic people definitely will go on a vindictive journey to first stop you from leaving them. So they will cage you from any way that they can, whether it's financially, taking all of that control away from you. So they will do something. So your safety. So if you're trying to leave, make a plan, don't tell them, right? Treat it this as a what can you say, like a bit of a escape plan, right? That is one thing. Just keep things to yourself, gather your passports, take your important documents and things like that, have it in your hand. And obviously children's important documents and everything, make a photocopy, do all of that. And look into speaking to a solicitor as well, get the legal support as well. And if your partner is a violent partner, that they have raised hands before, they have threatened you, they have hit the walls in the house to threaten you, they might not have hurt you, but they might have threatened you to hurt you. Yes, speak to a domestic violence charity or something like that, helpline or something like that. Get some advice if you're trying to leave, or even if you're staying, just have an exit plan in case it gets to that point. Okay, so I'm talking about like a bit of a, um, a situation where things get really volatile. If it's not, you've decided to stay, your exit plan is to find a life for yourself and for your children away from this person. Give them validation. Sometimes they need, I come from an Asian background, and I've seen this happen in family systems where the father is the head of the household. They'll sit at the table, and then the mother or the woman will be serving the father, and then they'll like criticize the food and all the rest of it. The mother will like fix it, you know. Well, if that's what will give you peace, then do it, right? If you can manage that, you want to keep the family, you want to provide a house for roof over your children, you don't want to take your children away from that situation, their father. Well, do that, but find a life for yourself, find a purpose somewhere else, find a support network, get into therapy yourself, do something that you really like. And I'm 100% aware how difficult this can be. I have family members who still live in Sri Lanka that I speak to, and they're telling me about their life, and they don't know that they're living with a narcissist, but I can hear the patterns. And they're always saying like, I can't even leave the house, because it upsets them. They love me so much. In my heart, I was like, I don't think they love you. They just want to control you. So, and don't give up your life, or don't give away your life or individuality. Find something. And I'm very aware that it can be sometimes difficult, particularly in environments, cultures, countries where that freedom is very limited, particularly for women. What I say, can be a very challenging thing to do. So I'm fully aware of it. I acknowledge it. But within your household, if there's something you can do, whether it's cooking, whether it's sewing, whether it's drawing, whether it's painting, anything you can do away from the narcissist and their eyes, just do it for yourself. Live a life for yourself and be close to your heart and to your children. That way you can survive a little bit better. But really important to understand that narcissistic abuse is domestic violence and domestic abuse, and without a doubt. And I've got training in domestic violence as well, and without doubt, that's domestic violence. And therefore, look into the legal rights as well, and look into your rights and legal rights and what legal protection that you can have for yourself.
And I think that is very important, that point that you are making, because we never see it before. And thank you for enlightening me on that, into domestic violence. And that is, as a victim of abuse, is a very, like, there is so many people that say, like, why you don't just leave, why you just keep complaining and don't leave. And there is so much complexity into
Yeah.
the brain of a traumatized
Yes.
person,
Yes.
that that what we need to do as a society is start normalizing this,
Mm,
start speaking up about our own stories with narcissists, so
mm,
we can start almost having that me too, into, oh, that happened to me too, and I hear you, you are not crazy. Everybody else is think that this person is amazing, and a hero, and a superhero, or a victim, but I see you. And I think that is important, that there is not a right timeline. I love how you give them the strategy, the exit plan, but for some people it's going to take a lot of years,
yeah.
because, like, the traumatized brain works different after you are
Yeah.
traumatized, especially several
Mm,
years. And I love how you say it. A lot of times you don't even know that you are being traumatized,
yeah.
especially when you are dealing with those in the middle narcissists that
Yeah.
just have enough to keep you in control,
Yeah.
that for the rest look perfect. You are being micro, you're having microaggressions and
Yeah.
micro trauma over and over and over and over again. So your brain starts changing subtly, and you don't realize that your brain changed.
Yeah.
So now let's gonna talk about this one, because I'm very passionate about this, and I'm actually struggle with this. When I face a couple of those narcissist relationships, is why is so important to have a regulated nervous system when we are dealing with a narcissist, and
Okay.
why that is one of the best strategies and things that we can focus on, is
Yeah.
in how we regulate our own nervous system.
Yeah. So the first of all, I think I want to clarify what a regulated nervous system is. A regulated nervous system is having an awareness of what's going on in your body and having the ability and the capacity, physical capacity, to experience all the emotions that you're experiencing there and then and be aware of it. That's that. So the regulated nervous system is really important because the narcissistic people tend to bait you a lot. It's like they will try and get you into an argument. They will try and get you hooked into a fight because they love a conflict. That's their supply. They absolutely love a conflict. I think there is a really good phrase for it. I can't remember exactly. It's like, don't get into a fight with a pig, right? Because pig loves the mud, we don't, right? So it's a bit like that. Don't get, narcissistic person is a pig in a mud trying to get you into the mud. So don't get into a fight with a pig. And so regulated nervous system is important. First, you pay attention to what's going on within you so that you end up starving them of any validation. Because when you starve the narcissist of the validation, they get fed up, they get frustrated, they eventually leave you alone in peace. Okay, that is the long term game of having a regulated nervous system. They will try to love bomb you. Having a regulated nervous system means this is love bombing. You're not falling for it, and they'll try to bait you, like get you hooked into an argument or something like that. And then having the regulated nervous system, this is baiting. I'm not getting into this. Bye bye. See you later. And then, or they will try and like hoover you back in. I miss the door. I miss old days. Do you remember this, that, and the other happened? We went on that holiday. That's beautiful holiday that we went on. I mean, you know, well, they're trying to hoover you back in. And when you're regulated, you just know the empathy, the sadness, the grief that's rising within you. But you can also equally say to yourself, this is danger zone. I'm not going there, right? He's hoovering me. So Regulated nervous system is really important so that you can actually starve the narcissist of the narcissistic supply. And when they are starved of narcissistic supply, they get fed up and they get frustrated and they tend to leave you alone.
And I think that that is very interesting, because is as we get regulated and as we allow ourselves to not buy in and get emotion. Because what you were saying, I was thinking about it. I never thought about this before, but today when you were thinking about it, I was imagining a vampire. Like literally, they feed from your energy. They feed from the satisfaction of knowing that they can emotionally disturb you, that they can create an emotion in you. I was thinking on one of the last narcissist relationships that I had, a good friend of mine that also have experience with narcissists told me the communication is to be brief, informative, friendly.
Yeah.
Because as like the going back into what you were saying of understanding what that you cannot compare with a narcissist, that you can, the other thing that I understand is you cannot have a verbal conversation with a narcissist, because they are trained and they are very good at tweaking things and changing
Yeah.
what you said. So start thinking into how I make it as brief as possible. And this is really challenging for us as female, because we want to explain our emotions and how we feel and all the story. And it's start training ourselves into no, brief, beef, brief, informative, friendly, just to the point. And then I will even say, I don't know your opinion, but if you are already in the point that you are separated from your partner, is try as much as possible to leave things documented
Yes.
via email in a place that they cannot delete, things like WhatsApp and all these other messaging things where they can delete things. That is a way of abuse, because they send messages and then they delete them, and that is creating cortisol in you. So start creating very clear boundaries about the communication is via email. And in that way, it's very hard for me to tell you, oh, what you said here is something else. No, what I say here is what is writing. Read it word by word. That is what I meant. So I think that is part also to start thinking in that chess pin into how you protect yourself from the regular system, to not feed them, but also protect yourself against some of their most common strategies.
Yeah.
Again, into, because I've been seeing that a lot, is the narcissist trigger the fight or trigger the reaction or
Yeah.
trigger the thing, and then the other person reacts and get emotional, and then the narcissist turn into the victim, and oh
Yeah.
my god, look what they are doing. Look how they are talking, look how they are behaving, they are doing this to me. But then nobody but the victim knows that that was actually a result of something that they triggered before.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And narcissist, you're absolutely right. They have like a special talent or something to actually get a reaction out of you, and they will pinch at you, pinch at you, pinch at you until they get a reaction anywhere. They'll come at you. That's why a regulated nervous system is important. And like, you're absolutely right. Have one place where you communicate. They're unlikely to follow your request to send an email because they're also aware that emails can be provided in court cases and stuff like that, so they'll try and avoid it. But you keep your communication to one mode of communication, one email maybe. Keep one day a week where you check those emails unless your child is at the other house. And if your children are at a stage where you can give them a phone, give them a phone so you can contact them like directly. And but yeah, have just one day where you respond to all of those emails from the narcissistic person, because that way you're only triggered one day. But and the written communication is also important, because when you're triggered and if you're not aware of your triggers yet, you might be explaining yourself, you might go into these conversations. But when you write, you can write and save the draft and walk away and come back, because you will see it differently. You will see it differently. You have the capacity or the option or the time to then reread the message and amend the message and make it really, really formal and emotionless. So yeah, so writing, written communication important, and also that's a good piece of evidence. I mean, I would say when you're dealing with a narcissistic person, keep every piece, as every communication, everything that's happened as a piece of evidence. It'll be useful, whether you go to a court or not. This is not just for the court. This might just be for your reference as well. Whenever you feel, whenever you doubt yourself, like, oh my God, am I making this up? Go back to a message and read it. You will soon get your answer. Actually, I'm not making this up, because narcissistic people are very good at taking you through this journey. They have good days, bonus of them having a good day. They'll be like, I can't believe we fight all the time. I can't believe we argue all the time. Do you remember the times that, we spend, nice time together? And you'll be like, oh, he is right. We did have a good time. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm making this up. On a day like that, where you're really doubting yourself, go back to an old communication. You'll be like, yep, this is why I made the decision.
And I think this is funny when you're talking about the emails, because on one of the narcissistic relationships, I was being abused via WhatsApp, and it was
Yeah.
that bullying and that pressure of sending messages in the evenings and then deleting them, and sending long recordings and then deleting them. Till one time I was like, "Hey, I don't want to communicate via this message anymore. I want to communicate via email."
Yeah.
And then the answer was no. The answer was like,
Yeah.
no, if you want to communicate with me, is here. And if you want to
Yeah.
send an email, send it to this person in my team.
Yeah.
And that itself is a big red flag of
Yeah.
how much they want those methods
Yeah.
to uh, to manipulate you.
Yeah.
Now, before we finish, because we're running out of time and all of this is so important. One of the biggest things that I see with narcissist parents, and is so sad, because they don't have the same emotional thing. They don't mind manipulate and hurt your children to use them as a weapon against you.
Oh yeah.
So they don't care if they are hurting your children. They don't care if they are using manipulating your children. They are doing it to put them against you. So how a mom, a parent that is facing with that is paralleling parenting with a narcissist can protect their relationship with their children, can protect not only their relationship with their children, but also their children that are the most innocent people in the picture, but the narcissist don't care about that. The narcissist is using them, manipulating them, and hurting
Yeah.
them in order to get to you.
Yeah. Understand, this is a marathon. It's not a journey, that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's going to take a while. That's number one. Number two is your healing is paramount in this journey, because it is through your healing you can create that sanctuary for your children at home. So when children come home, those two elements I believe are just so important. When I say healing, I'm not saying go to an expensive therapist or a coach or anything else. Healing can happen so in so many different ways, um therapists, you know or anybody will have the professional knowledge to propel it quicker. But so to the parents whose children go through that at the other end, coming home, first of all, learn to ungaslight your children. So because your children are being gaslighted, your children are being fed with poison, your children are given wrong information, so you need to learn the skills to handle that situation when they come home and say things like, oh, daddy said that. And if you're going into this truth campaign with your children, what will happen is your children are going to be um, confused even more, and they lose faith in both of you. So the important thing to remember is when the children go and come home and act out or blame you and accuse you of XYZ, use silence, connected silence, not the dismissive silence, but the connected silence. So you're paying attention, you're validating their feelings and emotions, you're accepting what they're saying. I'm not saying you're agreeing to anything you're saying, but nevertheless, you're not disagreeing either. If you want to disagree, right, don't go in a truth campaign. Just behave differently, in the sense that really, really take your relationship really deep with your children. Allow your children to grow into their own adults. Teach them what the boundaries are, right? And teach them how to communicate those boundaries, and teach them, teach them the body autonomy, teach them what they are capable of, but also have boundaries for yourself, because it is not acceptable for your children to come home and abuse you. You're not going to let that happen. So you'll just draw a line. This is not how you will talk to me, right? I love you. I see you. I hear you. I hear you angry. I hear you hate me. I still love you. My door is open. We'll talk. I'm here to help you. So you co-regulate with your children, right? Co-regulate. This is extremely, extremely exhausting. I've had moments where I'd sat with my daughter for an hour and a half, like she just couldn't bring herself to the regulated space, so like she wasn't ready to talk. So I've spent hour and a half, I think that probably was the longest time that I'd spent with my daughter on the staircase, just connected, until she co-regulated, until she was ready to come for a cuddle, and then we just like both hugged each other, and then we were able to like proper co-regulate and then have a conversation. Extremely exhausted. So your self-care is so important. Sleep, rest, look after yourself, eat well, vitality is important. Make sure your doctor's appointments are kept on time. Watch a bit of TV, enjoy a book, enjoy a massage. Self-care is so, so, so important. And again, I understand there might be financial barriers to all of this, but what can you do to substitute an expensive massage? You might be able to like exchange services. You might clean somebody's house, and then you might be able to do some that my person might offer you a massage. So, like figure it out, so find ways to look after yourself, and understand the long game, be there for your children, like educate yourself as well. Your depth of relationship, and your ability to provide that and positive environment, and that is the key. That is the key.
Thank you so much, Nisanka. This was absolutely phenomenal and very enlightening for me, as I'm also recovering from narcissist relationships. Thank goodness for me is not with the father of my son, but still apply for
Yeah.
all the other ones that I'm been also recovering from. Thank you so much. If you could very briefly send one final message to all the moms that are hearing us, and then also share how they can connect with you, where they can keep learning from you if they're dealing
Mm.
with something like this, how they can find your support.
Okay. One thing, whether you decide to stay or not, parent in the same house or not, or away or not, you can have your life back together, and you can heal, and you can support your children, and your children will thrive. So that's number one. That's hope. So you can find me on www.coachingwithnisanka.com. I am also on LinkedIn. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I'm on Instagram as well under co-parenting with a narcissist coach. And I do have a Facebook group, which is actually an intimate space, so you can share a bit more because its content is well managed. It's not out there, so just come to the Facebook group as well. It's co-parenting with a narcissist support Facebook group. Come to that one where I go live a lot, and then we can interact a bit better there.
So remember, co-parenting with a narcissist on Instagram and on Facebook group. And then her website is coaching with Nisanska. And
Nisanka.
when you are Nisanka, when you are
Yeah.
doing all of that, make sure that you are also follow me at Joy Unicorn Show, Joy Unicorn Coach. Nisanka, thank you so much. This was an absolute um, amazing um, episode, and I love how you close the the show, um, and that is that hope, and that is
Yes.
something that sometimes we don't see when we're in the middle, either when we are still together or when we already left the relationship, but we are still dealing with that. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for that. And this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it.
Thank you